in there.
Well, we're coming to your city. Gonna play our guitars and sing you a country song. We'll all be flying higher than a jetliner. And if you want a little bang in your yin-yang, come along.
Well, come on, welcome aboard. Indiana Sports Beat coming to you from the Golf Club at Eagle Point Studios on this Tuesday. As always, Jim Coyle with you. Kevin Brockway sitting in as he always does from CNHI. How are you, sir?
Good morning. Hey, just gearing up a few more days and we'll be out of this cold weather, right?
Well, maybe temporarily. You got the rain coming in and who knows. Oh, you mean heading south. Yeah, for a couple of days. Very temporary. Even for the football team, which we talked to Coach Allen yesterday. Both of us were on that presser, and even for them, it's a muted experience. They leave tomorrow. They'll arrive tomorrow night, I guess, and they'll practice on Thursday, walk through on Friday, and then you got the game on Saturday, and boom, boom, it's over. Not a lot going on for them, but the experience of playing in a bowl game is still good, especially for the 10 guys that are from that area. We saw, was it Michael McFadden? He's got like 46 people it's going to be there. So extrapolate that out. That's a lot of people just for those 10 guys.
Yeah, and a third-team All-American, Micah McFadden, along with Ty Freifogel yesterday, both named third-team All-American. And again, really benefiting, I think, the recruiting in that area, which, Tom Allen really has mined really well, he and his staff, that whole, Tampa Bay region, where you can get a lot of good players. And there are a lot of good players there. And, Florida and FSU and Miami certainly get their share, and UCF and USF. But there are plenty to go around down there. And Tom Allen, I think, having that Indiana brand down there will be fans in the stands limited, or about 17,000. But there could be some, maybe a kid in the stands that enjoys watching Indiana play and wants to be a future Hoosier down the road.
Man, there's so much to get to today. Mike DeCourcy will be on with us as always. Chronic Hoosier will be on as well. Big Ten basketball last night. We'll talk about Maryland, big win for them. Just all kinds of just fun stuff going on. Football, Indiana football. You just mentioned they're producing All-Americans. They didn't recruit an All-American. They produced these All-Americans. Player development. It's incredible. These guys, what, 3 stars? Coming in, and now they're All-Americans for Indiana. How difficult, we've seen how difficult it is for Indiana to get recognized when that name, how much it hurts them. But to produce All-Americans out of 3 stars, that's player development. And that is you talk about the healthy sign of a program.
Well, Ty Freifogel was a 2-star out of Lucedale, Mississippi, small town. So, tremendous job by this coaching staff. You got to give them a lot of credit. And, and as Nick Sheridan, too, you give the players credit in terms of, their work ethic and their drive and their determination to get better. Player development's a two-way street. It's, the coaching and the players and the buy-in. And that's really, that's the key to everything, is if you can have a plan and it's successful and the players can see it and they can visualize it and they know, the why they're doing something, and they see the fruits of that materialize into success. That's when you have something really special. You get people to buy in and they have success.
Absolutely, and he recruits a specific type player. His coaches everything is, you have to fit into this plan for this plan to work, and he's working it to a T. And I'll be honest with you, just like everybody else in the beginning, you look at it and you're like, that's kind of hokey pokey, but man, it's pretty solid. I mean, what he has done, where this program is right now, they're pretty solid.
Yeah, and so many coaches talk about culture, right? That's kind of the new buzzword now. You got to create a culture, and I think Tom Allen has really done it. I mean, I think it's a culture of accountability, and it's a culture of the next guy stepping up to help the guy next to you. And when you have that, then you have a really solid team. You have a unit. You have a group that's working together. But it has to start with the players caring about each other and putting the collective needs over themselves, which isn't always easy. Between 2020, branding, marketing, guys wanting to get to the NFL. But I even remember back when I covered Florida, and Urban Meyer had a pretty good line about this when he was coaching at the time. He said, you have success, and that stuff takes care of itself. He brought up Alex Smith even back when he was at Utah, and he coached Alex Smith at Utah. So if you have the team success, the coaches notice you're more productive within a system that's productive, and it's going to help you in the long run.
Absolutely. But I think the thing that carries over most, the fact that Tom Allen is sincere, real, and genuine, and they all know that, because you can only BS kids so long, and they see through that stuff. And I don't mean this as a negative towards PJ Fleck, but PJ Fleck's deal is just kind of contrived a little bit. It's like, let me read all the ski-u-ma and row the boat stuff. It seems more of a gimmick than this is. You can feel, see, and be a part of this, the realness of this. Just that seems a little gimmicky, and I think that gimmicky is okay, but it does not have the staying power that this seems to have.
Well, and let's be honest too. I mean, there's a talent aspect to this. Say, row the boat doesn't work as well when you don't have Antoine Winfield in your secondary, right? I mean, he's doing it on Sundays now for the Tampa Bay Bucks. So I think that you've got to be able to reload and replenish too, and that's going to be the challenge, I think, for Tom Allen going forward, is sustaining success. Although I think with this group, I don't see too many guys or the main impact guy I see that's probably leaving is Freifogel. Other than that, I think you've got a lot of guys that are going to be coming back. So I think next year really sets up as a chance for a special year, just because you have so many guys on this roster that are coming back. You might have Jerome Johnson as another one that will probably go, but you might have. I think you've got a lot of depth on the defensive line that's been established behind him. I mean, we haven't even seen DeMarge Lewis hit the field yet. But we've heard so many good things about him, and he's made an impact on the scout team, and he's a guy that could step in for that tackle for Jerome Johnson. So I think you've got, the talent and the depth in place in that program, but it's got to play out because, different players, you never know what to expect once they step on the field on Saturdays.
Well, in the last day or so in the Big Ten, Michigan's, defensive end, Aiden Hutchinson, big coming back for them on their defense. But Minnesota, just talking about rolling the boat, Muhammad Ibrahim just said he's coming back for them. So that's great news for those guys. But the Big Ten could be solid next year in football. I mean, really solid.
Yeah, and Abraham was the best running back in the Big Ten. But, not far behind him was Stevie Scott. And I think you would expect Stevie Scott to come back. You never know. I mean, he's a junior. He's draft eligible, but he's a guy that I think probably could benefit from another year. And I think he's a guy also that, and I looked this up last night. I'm probably going to write about him tomorrow. We're going to talk to him today. Remember, missed the bowl game last year, obviously, with the injury. They could have really used him in that Gator Bowl against Tennessee. Ole Miss, not a good defensive unit overall, but last in the SEC against the run, giving up 211 per game. This could be a game where they could really establish Stevie Scott, maybe Tim Baldwin, David Ellis, Samson James, some of those running backs, and establish the run in this game and make things a lot easier on Jack Tuttle.
And that kind of brings up a question. Who's, instead of asking who's returning for Indiana, I guess the easier question would be who is leaving. And you mentioned Ty Freifogel. We've already seen a transfer. And I probably will see one. I wouldn't be surprised to see just a couple, but because this 5-year deal is really going to create strain, because the transfer we saw was a freshman who did not see the field. Yep. And with all those guys coming back, he sees the writing on the wall. Well, I won't be playing next year either. That's going to create such a problem for this 2 years of classes here. What's it going to be like for the freshmen coming in next year if last year's freshmen were already struggling to get time?
Yeah. And, Wap is another guy. Does Wap come back? I think maybe he does, for a 5th year.
He kind of has to, because I don't know what his options aren't strong enough.
Yeah, the fact that he had that, he had that really great junior year, and then he had a down year this year. I mean, he's a guy that could come back and try to reestablish his stock a little bit. And then don't forget, Florida has a transfer coming in, DJ Matthews. He's a really intriguing guy. Not very big, 160 pounds, but shifty, fast. Could be a good punt returner, which is what they need. I thought, Reese Taylor this year was an upgrade over WAP, obviously returning punts, but I think this guy could be really dynamic. And I think you've got some pieces there, in terms of, even with the loss of Freifogel, as breakout of a season as he had this year, I think you've got some guys behind him, Javon Swinton, Jacoby Hewitt, Miles Marshall made some big plays, needs to work on the hands a little bit. Obviously, we saw in the Wisconsin game, there were some drops here and there on some big pass plays, but I think that you've even got some depth in that wide receiver room to overcome Freifogel as well.
Yeah, absolutely. Then we've got to talk about the quarterback situation, and we have no idea what that's going to be like. Jack Tuttle right now in a quarterback, getting reps, getting better. He's going to, he continue to improve. Michael Penix, we already know how good he is. And it's the question for him is, when does he make it back? Can he come back? I mean, 2 ACLs, that's tough, man. On a quarterback, every time, and it's happened when you're trying to scramble, so your mobility was already in question. Your fragility was already in question, and they gave him off basically the last half of the season last year to just basically get bigger, better, stronger, and yet it's still, unfortunately for him, he goes down. It's just a sad situation for him, man.
Yeah, and especially considering they were really limiting the design runs all season. I remember he had a few in the Rutgers game, and then I think that Maryland game in the first half he was struggling so much throwing the ball. He felt like he needed to make a play, so he does a read option play, and he races towards the sideline, and it just pops. But he was so good throwing the ball, most of the season. I mean, you're talking about the number of 300-yard games he had, and obviously, threw for close to 500 yards in that Ohio State game when he had to almost threw Indiana all the way back in that game. I think that it's going to be interesting to see, if it affects his footwork in terms of his throwing. And then next year, if he does come back, and they're very optimistic about the timeline. And ACLs are not what they used to be in terms of recovery time, but the second one can be tricky. I think it's just kind of a matter of trusting it. But say if they get him back for September 4th against Iowa, the big question will be obviously, how do you keep him healthy for the whole season, get him through a full season, as has been the case with Mike all year. And then do you really just eliminate all the design runs and just have him throw the football?
Well, we'll certainly see. We got plenty to talk about. Mike DeCourcy is going to join us next. Our favorite of the day. We'll be back with more from Indiana Sports Beat, coming to you from the Golf Club at Eagle Point Studios right after this. Indiana Sports Beat. When I'm not covering the Hoosiers, you can find me at Bubba's 33 and Good day, Mr. DeCourcy.
Good morning, Jim. How are you?
I am fine. Kevin Brockway here as always.
Kevin?
Morning.
What's going on?
Crazy.
How was your holiday, sir?
It was great. We have a new great niece that was born in October, so we were able to see her, and other than that, not super eventful, but it was all good.
Awesome.
And the Steelers came down from 24-7 to
the Steelers going back on track.
Oh my gosh, I forgot about that. You just reminded me. I had gotten that out of my mind. I don't know how I had erased that, but man, I thought this leading up to that. I'm like, oh, that's because I have Matt Taylor on Mondays. I'm like, oh, that sucks for Colts that they got to go there. It's a bad. Then I was like, oh, they're gonna win that game. Then I thought they had it all the way up until, and then all of a sudden he turns back into Big Ben. I'm like, he hadn't been there for 4 games. Now he decides, dag on it. Good win for them. Big win.
Yes, it was.
Now, do the Steelers have incentive to beat the Browns this week for the home field with the Bills on their heels? Or?
But the Bills have to lose to the Dolphins. So, like, if the Bills had lost last night, then maybe there would be some incentive. But they're locked into no lower than the 3, and it's hard to justify not taking the week off if you can get it, given that there's not that much to be gained. And so I think they'll try to win, obviously, but I don't think they'll play Roethlisberger and several others.
So that's not good news for Colts fans.
Yeah, I guess not.
Yeah.
I guess, but if the Dolphins lose, doesn't that help the Colts too?
Yeah, that does too. Yeah.
The Colts just need to win, and they just need who's playing the Titans? Oh, Houston.
Yeah. Good luck with that.
Yeah,
the Titans are going to beat Houston.
J.J. Watt, he's got them all fired up. What do you mean, man?
Yes. He should have saved his pregame speech for pregame instead of giving it 6 days early.
Yeah, let me rip my teammates for a week. Let them stew on that for a week.
Lunch special from 10:30 a.m. to 1 p.m. Monday through Friday, featuring a sandwich, fries, or onion rings, or a 7-inch pizza and a non-alcoholic drink for just $6. Be part of the karaoke fun every Friday and Saturday night. Leroy's Tavern, Northside tradition for 50 years at 2659 Mount Vernon Avenue.
Today's guest is brought to you by Reynolds Family Dentistry of Sillersburg. You need $1 million smile for those championship photos, and that's exactly what you'll get with Reynolds Family Dentistry.
Still burns. He's going the distance. He's going for speed.
Welcome back, Indiana Sports Beat, coming to you here on this Tuesday from the Golf Club at Eagle Point Studios. Kevin Brockway sitting in as he does. Now joined by the great Michael DeCourcy. Sir, how are you?
I am well. Jim, how are you? Kevin, nice to see you.
I'm sure you're happy. We were just talking about your Steelers. I had forgotten about that big win over the Colts this weekend, man. That's Steeler Nation's got to be ecstatic.
Yeah, it was. The Steeler Nation's hard to please now because there are still those who I mean this literally, who say that if it doesn't lead to a Super Bowl win, then it didn't mean anything. And I got that tweet, so trust me, it's out there. But those of us who live in the real world, it was enormous to see, and I won't dwell on it because I know that a good portion of your audience are Colts fans, and also of all the teams in the league. I mean, I really like the Colts. I like their fans. Having been there twice to watch Steelers games at Lucas Oil, their fans are among the most courteous that I've ever encountered. The organization, I think Ballard's tremendous. I love the people in the media department. The players that I've met have been tremendous. So of all the teams that I would want that to happen against, that would be the last team. But, when they throw you both in the pit, you got to get out.
I don't want to get on a Colts thing, but when you mentioned that, it kind of made me realize since 1984, when the Colts were planted in Indianapolis, they just became a football town. They just love that team ever since, and it's never stopped.
No, I think that's absolutely true. I mean, because now I've lived here 6 years, and although it's still a basketball state, and certainly Indy it has basketball running through its blood, I see a lot more attention paid in the local media, but more so the broadcast media. I see a lot more attention paid to the Colts than to the Pacers, for instance.
Yep, it's all looking good. Turning to basketball, the Big Ten, man, it's just like we thought it was going to be, a bloodbath last night. We saw a Maryland team go up and get a big win against number 6 Wisconsin. That was a little surprising because you've already got 9 teams that are ranked in the Big Ten. Purdue's not ranked. Maryland's not ranked. Minnesota looked good as well. I mean, this league keeps getting worse.
It really does. For those who are in it, I mean, it's better for us, Jim, because it's going to be the most amazing show on hardwood. But it really is hard for the competitors to be able to breathe. And it was difficult a year ago when we went into February with 12 out of the 14 teams having a legitimate chance. And we knew that they wouldn't all be able to do it, but 12 of the 14 had a legitimate chance to make the tournament. And ultimately Purdue faded a little and Minnesota faded a lot. And so we ended up with 10 teams on my final projected bracket at Fox before, of course, the whole thing shut down and there was no tournament. And that 10, by the way, I wasn't. Not only was I not the only one, but every if you look at there's a website called the Bracket Matrix that compiles about 100, maybe more brackets. Some professional sites like Fox Sports and Joe Lunardi from ESPN and Jerry Palm from CBS, and some are just people who do it more or less for fun, so to speak. And there are 100 of them, and then they average it out, and that bracket average had 10 Big Ten teams as well. And I don't know if mathematically, so to speak, it can happen, but I had 11 on my first projected bracket, which went up at Fox yesterday at CBB on Fox on Twitter. I had 11, and Maryland was not one of them, which tells you how really perilous the league is. And I'm not saying, and when I talked to my producers on Sunday or Monday, I told them that I probably would have 11, but that of the 14, the only one that I look at and say, I just can't see them being good enough at this stage to make the run in the league that would be necessary is Nebraska. Penn State's already beaten the number 7 seed on my bracket, Virginia Tech, by 20 points on the road. They just haven't played enough games and won enough games to have made my bracket. Maryland now, of course, has beaten the one of my number 2 seeds and my highest number 2 seed in Wisconsin on the road. So there are 13 teams in this league that can make the tournament. They can't all make it. It just doesn't seem, you can't, unless everybody finishes 500 and the champion finishes 1 game over or 2 games over. Yeah, I don't think that can happen. But I think everybody except Nebraska is capable of doing it.
Mike, I look at Northwestern and Minnesota. I look at Boo Buie and I look at Marcus Carr, and you see 2 point guards that are really excelling. I mean, just how important is that going to be going forward? And I guess the elephant in the room with that is that's really what Indiana lacks right now, isn't it?
Well, what Indiana lacks relative to those guys is that audacity. I mean, and one of the things that's been frustrating to watch about Robert Finney is that he hasn't gained that command, that confidence, that belief that I can do this. And I don't know how much of that may be impacted by the various injuries he's had over the course of his career. He's had many, and I don't know whether that has diminished him in terms of the ability to go past someone or something like that. I don't see a clear diminishment. I can't say without being inside his head. But I don't see it. I don't see a different player. I just see a guy who hasn't gained the belief that one would have as basically a third-year starter, not a guy who's played 90 games because he missed so much time, but a guy who's in his 3rd year as being the guy they've said, we trust you as our starter. I don't see the confidence in him. With Boo Buie, I mean, he has too much confidence. I mean, he'll take any shot that he feels is open and some that aren't, and they don't always go, but when they do, they're really punishing to opponents because they're like, man, we can't guard that. You can't ask us to guard that. That's a crazy shot, but he makes them. And, of course, Marcus Carr is hard to guard because he's so talented. He's so physically gifted, and he has that supreme confidence in knowing of that, knowing he's played 3 years, knowing he's got that ability. He doesn't take the off-the-chart shot that a Boo Buie does, but he takes shots that you can't guard because you can't stay in front of him. If you commit to trying to stop his drive, he steps back into a 3 like he did to win that game a month ago or so. And if you don't commit to stopping the drive, he goes right by you.
And when you have a guy like Boo Buie that has that unmitigated swagger, I think that just drops down the entire team, not making every guy take those shots, but they all have that confidence, whether it's in themselves or in Boo Buie, and it just gives the team an entire lift.
I think it does. I think they believe in what they do. They believe they're going to be in close games, and they're probably going to lose the games when Boo takes that shot at maybe the wrong moment and it doesn't drop or whatever. But he makes his fair share, and that's what beat Michigan State. Him making shots like that, that's a big part of what it. You got Ryan Young inside, who is such an amazingly efficient low post player and such a battler. They've got a real character about their team, and It's interesting if you look at Ken Palm right now, based on what they are rated, and some of that I think is if you look at Ken at the start of the year, he has a preseason rating. So obviously Northwestern wasn't expected to be very good. So his rating still has them projected to lose like their next 10 games. But I've watched them play. You've watched them play. I don't think that's going to happen. I mean, they may only go 500 in their next 10 games, let's say. But in this league, that could be really good. If you go 500 in this Big Ten over the course of 20 games, you're going to have had a heck of a year.
Yeah, Kevin, I saw a tweet yesterday, and you're an AP poll voter. We'll talk about that too. But there will be teams probably in the NCAA tournament from the Big Ten with a losing league record, without a doubt.
Well, Indiana last year was 9-11, and with 10-11 if you get the Big Ten tournament game, and even had they lost to Penn State, I think in that second game and been 10-12, I think they would have found their way in because they kind of got to that magic number of 20 wins in a tough conference, plus the win against Florida State in the non-conference. So I think this year, I mean, when you're looking at that magic number, I mean, Indiana went 5-2 in non-conference. I think if Indiana gets to 15 wins in the league, or maybe even 15 wins, including the Big Ten tournament, I think they'll probably get it.
Well, we've talked about so many teams already. Maryland, upstart because their big win last night. Purdue's another team. I'm surprised they got 0 votes in the AP poll, and they're like 6-3 or something.
Yeah, well, I think they're 7-3 actually, and I had them in my bracket firmly in. No, they're really the only team that I had on the edge of making it in terms of the Big Ten was Indiana, which I had in the first 4, and some of that comes to only being a game over 500. I think it's actually you can say, well, gosh, they're only in the first 4, but it's a measure of respect to be able to get into the tournament at 5-4 on a projected bracket like that. That's saying that you've accomplished some really compelling things, but of course they've also played an absurdly difficult schedule. I don't know if people are aware of how unusual Indiana's schedule is, but it's not. There aren't very many teams out there that have played 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 high major games out of 9. Kentucky has played more, and that's a big part of. They played 6 out of 7. And that's a big part of why they're struggling to this point. But to be 5-4, having played 6 high major games. Texas Tech right now, like everybody loves Texas Tech. The computers love them. The poll voters love them. Do you know how many high major teams they've beaten so far? They have beaten 1. And that one was Oklahoma, which they beat by a single point on the road. That's their high major record right now. They played Kansas, lost by a point. They beat Oklahoma by a point. They got drilled by Houston. That's it. That's all they've played. Everybody else has been not only have they not played, they haven't played mid-majors. I mean, it's all off the bottom of the bottom leagues. That's what Texas Tech has done, and no one's paying attention to that. They're just keep getting poll votes. And when I rated them, I think a 9 seed in my bracket, I got a lot of pushback from either their supporters or their fans saying, "Hey, they deserve to be better." The computers say they're better. Yeah, but they haven't played anybody or beaten anybody. The teams they play, they haven't beaten, and mostly they haven't played anybody. Indiana's only 5-4. Okay, that's not what they want. That's obviously not ideal, and certainly the Northwestern loss was a shock to the system. But to be where they are with wins over Butler and Stanford and Providence, I think it's certainly acceptable. It's not what they want. And they've got to get better. And I think that they got to get better starts with the 2 games this week with Penn State and Maryland both at home. It's too early to say must win, but if you don't win those games, then you have to start winning games against teams like on the road at Wisconsin or on the road at Iowa or whatever. Games that you're probably going to struggle to win. Now you have to start winning some of those.
I wonder if the fan aspect, the assembly hall aspect, I wonder how much that will affect teams, a team like Indiana going forward, because Northwestern, they kind of brought their juice, and when Indiana made a run, I mean, they sustained it a little bit, but you didn't have that crowd energy that could further derail a team like that. I'm just curious. I think that's going to be fascinating going forward to see what Indiana's home record is going to be at the end of the year and how much it's going to impact that.
Well, I think there's an understanding for everybody that you're kind of out there alone now. I mean, I wrote a piece a week ago talking to multiple players, walk-on types from various programs about how they've tried to generate energy for their teammates. I talked to Steven Izzo from Michigan State and some others, and they're trying to help their guys forward. But you're mostly out there alone, and so you lose a lot of the home court advantage. There's no question about that. But the teams that are winning games aren't having to rely on that. They're getting together with each other and they're fighting through it. And I don't think that necessarily was the problem in any of the games that IU has lost. I mean, I think the problem has been and continues to be the struggle to generate offense, especially in the perimeter. They aren't able to generate the number of high quality shots they want. They're not able to make enough open shots. They get frustrated, and this I think is the part that's the most easily fixable. They'll get frustrated with how their offense is going generally, or how it's going on a particular possession, and they try to force action. Armand Franklin, who I think is having a very fine season, that's the one weakness in his season is he appears to get frustrated and he tries to say, okay, if this is not going to happen, I'm going to make it happen. And then that's when he gets himself into turning the ball over. He's not the only one guilty of that. Sometimes guys will force shots on the perimeter, that sort of thing. But he's one who it's obvious because he doesn't force a lot of shots, but he tries to force some action. You see those kinds of things happening, and that's how a team that isn't dynamic offensively gets itself in trouble. If you struggle to create offense, the last thing you want to do is give the ball to the other team, because every offensive possession is that much more precious to you when you struggle to get a basket out of each one.
Talk about some great games tonight. Talk about Purdue. They get the chance. They go to Rutgers, was a team we haven't talked a lot about, who's a great story. And then the game of the night, Northwestern is at Iowa. Kevin, those are two good Big Ten games.
Yeah, no question. And
and that's going to be that way every night, really.
It's going to be tough. I think that when you look at Northwestern, they have been a really nice story. Chris Collins, what he's managed to do with that team, and certainly we saw Chase Audich of all people take over that game down the stretch against Northwestern, and I think that obviously Iowa, Luka Garza, you've got so many quality players in this league. I mean, it's going to be a meat grinder all season.
And there's people starting to talk about Archie and all that. And I'm like, to me, that's not even a discussion. It's not even a point for them right now. I don't think anything is this is just one of those years where it's a pointless discussion, but people were going to have it. Mike?
Yeah, I obviously they don't want to regress. And I don't think they have to this point. Remember, they're playing without their starting center, and that, I don't know what the horizon is on that, but they've played 9 games without the one true big man that they have in their program, and that's certainly had an impact on what they've been able to do, the level of performance they've been able to reach. I think if you're doing that, you have a clear agenda, and I'm not interested in that. When you get to the end of the year, if they have fallen below what would be a standard step forward from a year ago, barely, being, barely in the tournament, 9-11 in the league, that sort of thing. If you haven't at least held ground and maybe made a little bit of progress, then you can have whatever discussions you want to have about, what's the best way forward. But if you're having it now, that's your sport. Your sport is chasing coaches, and I'm not interested in that sport. I have no interest in that sport. There are a lot of people who that's their favorite part of every sport is trying to go after coaches. I just don't. That's not. And look, I'm critical of coaches. I'm critical of the Steelers' offensive coordinator. I put it on Twitter. I don't think he's very good. I don't think he's been empowering this team or whatever. But I think that if you spend this much amount of energy on going after a coach who has beaten Providence by 21 points and Stanford by 16 and Butler by 8, if you're trying to go after that guy at that point, I just don't think that you're really all that interested in basketball. I think you're much more interested in the coaching carousel.
Absolutely, because it's an easy one to poke holes at for people. But Mike, anything coming up next for you people need to know about to read? Mike, anything coming up next for you that people need to know about to make sure they read?
Yeah, well, I'm going to be making my first appearance of the year. I'm going to be making my first appearance of the year on Fox on the postgame show following Big Ten Hoops tonight, discussing the bracket that we posted yesterday. And then I'll make my first Big Ten Network appearance of the year on Saturday, I believe in the pregame show. So I'm looking forward to that. Very much excited about another year with both those two organizations. And then I posted a story yesterday about how best for Mike Tomlin to handle the last week of the regular season, because they've got some decisions to make about who to play, who not to play. So we'll see how that goes.
Well, you just ask Randy Fichtner. Is that his name? The OC for Steelers? Fichtner. I'd never heard of him. There's a reason for that, I guess. You're going to say, Mike, thank you so much, man. We appreciate you.
Even the guys doing the games. Thanks, Jim.
You bet, man. Thank you so much. The great Michael DeCourcy joining us here. Make sure you follow him on Twitter and everywhere else from Fox, BTN, and the sporting news, of course. Kevin Brockway with us. We got more coming up, and we'll be back with it from the Golf Club at Eagle Point Studios. Indiana Sports Beat returns right after this. Hello, everybody. Jim Coyle from Indiana Sports Beat. When I'm not covering the Hoosiers, that was fun.
Yeah, no question.
You're getting better at just jumping in. I was like, that's why I kind of sit back. I'm like, perfect. Boom.
Yeah, but sometimes I'll jump in and then Mike will jump in.
Well, he did that one time. He must have had a delay or something because.
Yeah, I think that's what was delayed. Yeah. And then I got thrown off a little bit, but.
Yeah, that's why I try to start throwing the names out because I can't tell what he's looking at because we can't see him.
Yeah.
So I don't know if he's looking at us or not.
Yep.
Oh, I got a Chronic's coming up next. There's the Chronic Christmas card.
How about that?
There you go, folks. You get to see it. Put that up during the show in a minute. Whoo, baby. So, isn't the Cheez-It Bowl on today?
Yeah, Miami versus Oklahoma State, my Canes.
Well, I don't know why it's not coming up on my ESPN scoreboard. Football, home, scores, bowl schedule. There we go.
What a disappointment. We go from Orange Bowl appearance to a bunch of Cheez-Its.
Well, it's still orange. I'd rather eat Cheez-Its than oranges right now, I can promise you. Throw Cheez-Its at me instead of oranges.
Oh, De'Ara King says he's coming back in 2021. That's good news for Miami. He had a really good year. They need to build a better team around him, but he's also small, but he's a good quarterback.
I'm surprised some of Indiana's guys, and this would be a good topic of conversation. I'm surprised some of Indiana's guys who we don't know haven't made that announcement right around this bowl just to.
Hey guys, I got Chronic on.
Perfect.
I thought about it.
Hey, Chronic, what's up, brother? How you doing?
I'm doing well, man. How are you? Did you get any news yesterday?
This up. No, I'll talk to Adam's going to drive over there today for me.
Yeah. You know, Jim, I was thinking about asking Freifogel that question, but I didn't know if it was like the timing or if Keeg would get too pissed about it. But I was actually thinking about asking him, hey, look, you've had this great year, but have you thought about your future? Are you going to go right away, or would you consider coming back?
Well, if you want to ask him next time, I will.
or WAP. I mean, I think that'd be better. I think Freifeld's got to go.
Here's the thing.
Yeah,
and I don't. Where's
the
Bob going to go? I don't know that his status is high enough right now because he wasn't as featured as much this year.
On Vernon Avenue.
Today's guest is brought to you by Reynolds Family Dentistry of Sillersburg. You need $1 million smile for those championship photos, and that's exactly what you'll get with Reynolds Family Dentistry.
It's a nice day for a white wedding.
Welcome back, Indiana Sports Beat, coming to you here on this Tuesday from the Golf Club at Eagle Point Studios, and that means one thing: Chronic Hoosiers with us. What's up, my man?
Oh, it's another day in paradise, man. Glad to be back. Glad to be looking at bowl week for our Hoosiers football team, and it's still a little frustrated by where we're at, but at this point, honestly, man, putting a lot of that behind me now, and I'm just really ready to see these guys play one last time this season.
Yeah, the biggest thing right now is just make sure of getting to the bowl game and the bowl game happening, because we know Ole Miss has had quite a bit of issues, COVID issues, injuries, opt-outs, but Lane Kiffin has said it doesn't matter, we're coming.
Yeah, that was an interesting quote yesterday in the Clarion Ledger down there in Mississippi, talking about Lane basically saying they're having to recruit their own players to play in a bowl game. This is a team who hadn't been. This is going to be their first bowl in 5 years. And, you look at just the tale of two teams right now. I think most of the Hoosiers would probably crawl on their hands and knees down to Tampa in order to go unleash some of these emotions that they've been dealing with here for the last month. And, you've got this SEC school from down in football country, with a high-profile coach, a high-potent offense. And it doesn't seem like they're much interested in playing right now. So it'd be real interesting to see. It'd be a darn shame if for whatever reason they cannot make this thing happen, whether it be COVID or just a lack of available scholarship players, because there have been a lot of people that worked really hard to get to this point this season. So, and it's 2020 though, man. Even spilling into the next year, I guess, until I see that ball kick, you kind of got to watch every scheduled game with bated breath before it finally gets off.
No question. Chronic, you say that now. But what was interesting was I think Tom even revealed, and this may have played into the delay of the Outback Bowl announcement. I mean, I think there were some serious discussions that Sunday as Indiana felt it was getting slighted about opting out. It seemed like that was really something that was crossing their minds. I mean, Tom admitted that yesterday in the press conferences that they had some discussions and then they finally decided. But now that they've decided, they're going all forward and all in on it.
Yeah, I'm not sure what the proper response from Tom Allen would have been at any point during this juncture. I thought he did a pretty remarkable job of saying the right things. Obviously there's a lot of politics involved here, while still making very clear his opinion on the slights, both from the College Football Playoff Committee as well as from his own league, because Lord knows the conference did him dirty. At least in their votes. Heaven forbid we talk about the way in which the conference has treated the program over a lifetime, basically. And at the end of the day, from a coaching standpoint, especially in these times, because more than likely this is probably going to be a losing venture for Indiana, or maybe break even at best. Bowl games often aren't financially beneficial for most of the programs, at least in the mid-level bowls. So there's a lot of stuff to take into account here. Would I have slighted him or faulted him if they decided that they were just going to pass on it because they got the shaft? Probably not. I was more than willing to flip over my own furniture in my living room in frustration with it. So I can imagine it was probably an emotional decision how to respond to that. But all that being said, they decided that this is what they want to do. This is yet another January bowl for a team that has struggled historically to get to bowl games, and now they find themselves in the January spotlight here on back-to-back years, with honestly a chance to take an SEC team to the woodshed, because as Kiffin mentioned, most of their issues right now with injuries and opt-outs and COVID are on the offensive side of the ball, and that's bad news for a team that's coming into this game with the worst total defense in college football right now.
One of the things we're talking about, Chronic, is with there's been some announcements here in the last day. Muhammad Ibrahim coming back for Minnesota, and a guy, Aiden Hutchinson, coming back from Michigan. Who's going to come back for Indiana, or basically who will leave? Ty Freifogel, of course, is one we think will possibly go on to the league. Fillier, we don't know what his situation. Only seen one transfer, and I'm sure there might be one or two because of this added class, but mostly this team's going to be intact. But we wonder who will be the ones that leaves.
It's so difficult. I find it to forecast a lot of that. I mean, obviously, Freifogel would be at the top of my list if I were circling in who we're likely to lose. But the real wild card in this is often, we look at it as who's got that NFL talent, who has potential to play on Sundays. From what we've seen, what we don't see in a lot of this decision-making process is what's going on behind the scenes with these guys. For a lot of them, the decision whether to stay in college or whether to enter the draft is a financial decision that's being made by individuals and with their families and people they care about being taken into account. It's a lot of stuff that we just don't know about, quite frankly. So it's really hard to tell. I wouldn't be surprised if they don't suffer a whole lot of attrition at all this season. As we saw after last year, this team has a way to kind of bottle that frustration and turn it into motivation and go achieve even bigger goals. So my guess is Tom Allen's making that pitch awful hard right now, but at the same time too, there's certainly some talent on this team that has potential to go get paid for their talents. And I wouldn't be the least bit surprised if we see a couple of those happen with the full support of the program.
I think kids are now, but I think 10 or 15 years ago, sometimes the reasons too are academic. Kids were just tired of going to school or not doing well in school, and just wanted to start their professional careers. That's an unfortunate thing, but I think now you're seeing more kids realize the value of that education.
Yeah, I mean, you look at not just the education, but you look at how difficult it is to make the league. I mean, think to some of the former Hoosiers that certainly showed that potential. T. Gray Scales is a great example. One of the better linebackers we've had in some time, and just what an incredible struggle it's been for him to stick on a roster. He's with the Steelers right now, pretty far down on their depth chart, but it's been really tough for a guy who was really, really good at the game. And, you look at the prospects of, maybe you bounce around some practice squads, and what do those financial situations look like? It's a really, really tough hill to climb for those guys, especially those who have, undrafted free agents or those that go in the lower rounds of the draft. It's a grown man's business. There's no doubt about it. And, it's going to be interesting to see how the eligibility issues play into a lot of the decision process. These guys basically get a pass on the year right now. So, maybe that gives you the opportunity to come back and finish up or start a master's degree and just make, your post-football career that much more likely to succeed. So lots taken into account, a lot of wild cards this year for sure. One thing I'm certain, they're probably going to come out extremely ready to play some football here this weekend.
On the hardwood side, Chronic, Indiana coming up with a game against, on Wednesday, their next opportunity. And these are important. These next two games, very important as Penn State comes in and Maryland. But we saw Maryland go up to Wisconsin last night and handle the Badgers. This Big Ten, we already know how rough it is. There's 9 teams that are ranked. That does not include Maryland. They're not ranked. That does not include Purdue, who's not ranked. And that does not include Indiana. You can't take a night off in this league. And Indiana has played better than I think a lot of people think. It doesn't look as good. Offensively, they have not been producing. They need that third option, and that's the big question for them right now, Chronic. Where is that third option going to come from?
No, it's been a really, really interesting season from, what the eye tells us, what the statistics tell us. Indiana does not have a bad loss on the season. All 4 of their losses, Texas, Florida State, Northwestern Illinois, all the ranked teams, with the exception of the Texas game, I feel like they were fairly competitive. in most of those games. Had a chance to put themselves in a position to win the game right up until winning time, it seems like. And, that there's not a whole lot of solace taken. They played really hard. And, Lord knows I'm getting a whole lot of that in my timeline right now. Hoosiers ain't got time for moral victories, that's for sure. But, the biggest thing that stands out to me right now, this team's got to get more from its guard play. And it's got to have more consistent leadership from its upperclassmen. As I'm looking at the Penn State game, as you mentioned, there are no nights off in the Big Ten this season. And every year it seems like we talk about a league that could be at its best. I think you probably have a really strong case to say this is as good as Big Ten's been top to bottom, possibly ever. You go into a game like Penn State, which Pomeroy says should be a 5-point win for Indiana, and then you recognize this is a team that's playing one underclassman in its regular rotation right now. One of them, Indiana's playing 3 upperclassmen in its regular rotation right now, and quite frankly, it's being a little disappointed from that group, particularly Rob and Al. It's been great to see Armand's ascension and his rise. He's turned into be probably the team's second most important player night in, night out. But it's going to be really difficult to scratch a lot of wins out of this schedule unless you can get more consistent guard play and unless you can get more consistent leadership from those upperclassmen on the team. And Joey Brunk's absence this year due to injury certainly doesn't help that matter either. But it's going to be a tough one, man. And you talk about the next 2 games. I'd look at the next 5. Penn State, Maryland, Wisconsin, Nebraska, Purdue. You got to find a way to scratch at least 3 wins out of that. Else you're going to find yourself in a hole that may be insurmountable as you get into the heart of the Big Ten season here. Ask Michigan State what that's like right now.
Kevin?
Because, and I do think that there's time to recover if you do stumble, but, you make it so much harder on yourself to play uphill like that if you're, 2-3 games under 500 in this league. And right now they're 2 games under 500. I think that's got to be the goal, just get back to 500 in the league and then go from there in a league as tough as this. And I think that certainly starts with a Penn State team that, let's face it, you did talk about the upperclassmen, but you did lose that, premier talent last year in Lamar Stevens, who makes a difference. And they are bringing in an interim coach this year, but they play tough defense. So they beat Virginia Tech on the road by 20. So it's just crazy. It's night to night. And I think, like you said, Chronic, you have to kind of bring that intensity and effort every night, and that execution too, which is important. And I thought too that I thought Archie took a positive step in Northwestern. You could see the team was a little gassed at the end of that game. Maybe using a little bit more of his bench, sprinkling in Lander and Lee a little more in the first half. And they seemed a little fresher at the end of that Illinois game. They just didn't make shots.
Yeah, and it's usually what it comes down to is at the end of the game, there's that stretch when everything is still very much up in the air. Players got to make plays, players got to make shots, and for Indiana, it's been certainly underpinned by its defense this year, and the offensive struggles I feel like have really overshadowed just how good the defense is this year, how effective it's been. But the flip side of that is playing good defense is really, really hard. Playing good defense takes a lot of gas out of these guys. And, when Archie's running a 7-man rotation, what we found is there's a lot of empty tanks at the end of the game. And, trying to find a way, and I felt like he did a pretty decent job against Illinois of getting Trace some rest whenever Coburn went out. Almost instantly, Archie was pulling Trace too to let him catch a blow real quick before having to go out there and bang against one of the better players in the Big Ten right now. But one of the struggles is that comes at a pretty high cost because with so much of the offense being focused around Trace, they really seem to struggle when they don't have that initial, option 1A and 1B with Trace on the floor. So they've got to find a way to get that somehow balanced out right now. And they've got to, I think more than anything, they've got to find a way to get some confidence in these guys. Far too often people talk about the offensive struggles. Look, man, the offense is getting looks. It's getting plenty of looks. Either the shots just aren't being taken, which is hugely problematic, or they're just not falling. And I think you look at what's the root cause of both of those, and I think you can circle that as a confidence issue right now with this team, particularly with its guards. They've got to find a way to get some confidence in themselves and their teammates, and start seeing that ball go through the basket, because that makes everything so much better when you can just knock down some dang jumpers.
Hey, we just got a minute left here, Chronic, but I want to make sure we hit on talk about filling up a tank. The Hoosier Hills Food Bank, you've been working hard to get that done. Make sure you get a chance to shout that out and get to people all that information.
Yeah, man, I really disappointed that we ran into some red tape there, trying to figure out how to make this happen without getting in any trouble. At the end of the day, the easiest solution was just turn all the payments over and screen grab me. So I was able to kind of remove myself from the situation. It did not look like it was some sort of exchange taking place for my terrible pieces of Photoshop. But I cannot tell you how many evenings I spent over the week last week, just in absolute awe at the kindness, the generosity. Jim, shout out to yourself as well. I'm not out here giving dollar amounts, but you were at the very top of my donations chart, as well as a couple coaches at IU and some folks dear to me. So I cannot thank you and everybody else enough. By my count, we were able to raise just a little bit under $4,000 for the Hoosier Hills Food Bank, and really help some of the families, our neighbors, who are struggling with food insecurity this year. COVID's hit this area really, really hard. There's a lot of people in the hospitality sector who are having some pretty inhospitable times right now due to our current economic situation. So if nothing else, man, hopefully we were able to spread a little cheer and put a little food on some people's plates. But the thing that a lot of folks reached out to me that work in this sector, that deal with these issues, as grateful as they are, it's really easy to forget once the holidays are over, but the issue does not go away. And with our government continuing to struggle to figure out how to help, those problems are only worsening week by week, month by month, and there's really no end in sight right now. So if you guys are fortunate enough to take care of your own and you got a little extra to spare, that's what Hoosiers do best, man. We take care of each other. So please donate HoosierHillsFoodBank.org.
There we go. HoosierHillsFoodBank.org. Chronic, thanks enough, man. We'll be back again next week, hopefully talking about a bowl win. He got his first bowl win.
Hey, let's get a bowl one. Let's get that one off the books, and let's get these basketball boys back in the black here, at least 500, and things get a whole lot merrier heading into 2020. Looking forward to, or 2021. Looking forward to it, man.
Chronic Hoosier, thank you, sir. Back again next week.
Be well. Drive safe.
Indiana Sports Beat, back with more from the Golf Club at Eagle Point Studios right after this.
Hello, everybody. Jim Coyle from Indiana Sports Beat. When I'm not covering the Hoosiers, you can find me at Bubba's 33 in Clarksville.
Okay, Mr. AP poll voter. And we'll talk about this, but why is Purdue not ranked? I didn't until I started looking through there yesterday. I'm like, damn, they're 6-3. They've got a good win. I know they've got a good winner too.
They blew an 18-point lead to Miami. They're good.
Yeah.
They're not that great. They're good, but their teams are better. It's let's see where Ken Palm has them. I think Ken Palm has them somewhere in the 30s. Let's see where Ken Palm has them.
Where's Indiana?
Ken Palm has Indiana high. They like Indiana for whatever reason. I guess because they've played such a hard schedule. But they have Indiana 23. They have Purdue 32. Indiana's 10th in the country in defensive efficiency.
Yeah, Trey Galloway has got
290 in tempo. Remember, Archie, we're going to be more up tempo, 290.
Oh, yeah, up tempo for 3 years now. Trey Galloway's got to look to score more. They don't have a third option. Somebody's got to just step up and become the third option. And Trey Galloway's got the ball in his hands and the minutes to do it. I think he just needs the confidence to go to the rim instead of looking to pass.
Yeah, and he's we might call it. He's a guy that. I think there's he had the confidence in the rim in the non-conference schedule. I think it's just a little different in the Big Ten schedule because it's just so many bigger, longer athletes. But you're right. Oral Durham, who did it a little in the second half of that Illinois game, but he's It's 4-12. That's the problem.
Here's the thing with me with Al Durham. You're a junior. It's the same with Finney. Or a senior. You haven't done it now?
I know. Yeah.
Sorry. I don't want to rely on somebody that's been here that long and still not doing it.
Yeah. Yeah, no, I mean, listen, they're just, I think they are what they are at this point. Teams that have to win on defense because they're limited offensively. And that's so hard to do. It puts so much pressure on you.
And they're going to have a night where they shoot the lights out, I think. Like, we saw it, 2 years ago at Michigan State when Justin Smith went nuts. They're going to have that where they have good shooting nights. So they didn't shoot badly against Illinois. It just
10:30 a.m. to 1 p.m. Monday through Friday. With sandwich, fries, or onion rings, or a 7-inch pizza and a non-alcoholic drink for just $6. Be part of the karaoke fun every Friday and Saturday night. Leroy's Tavern, a West Side tradition for 50 years at 2659 Mount Vernon Avenue.
This segment is brought to you by Bubba's 33 in Clarksville. Pizza, burgers, beer.
Welcome back, Indiana Sports Beat here on this Tuesday. Coming from the Golf Club at Eagle Point Studios, Jim Coyle, Kevin Brockway with you. Just had Mike DeCourcy on, Chronic Hoosier on. It's been a good day already. We were talking, the third option. Indiana's got to have a third option on scoring basketball, Kevin. And I think Trey Galloway has just got to look to score more. He's got the minutes and he's got the ball in his hand. And I think he just lacks a little bit of confidence of going to the rim instead of looking to pass a little more. But I think that because somebody just has to step up. You cannot wait on Al Durham anymore. He's a senior. He's been here long enough. Can't wait on Rob Finney anymore. He's been here long enough. I mean, you keep hoping for those guys. Jerome Hunter's the same. But I think you got to look to somebody else. And I think Trey Galloway is the first place you look. I think he just has to look to score more.
I mean, you talk about Hunter. Boy, I mean, he missed some point-blank shots in that game against Illinois. Really could have given him a nice lift off the bench, was in position to score a lot of times in that game, and he didn't. I think with Trey, I mean, I think your point is well taken. I think when you're a freshman, though, facing kind of those bigger, longer athletes in the Big Ten, it's adjustment. You have to kind of learn to find your way a little bit. But he is a guy that I think he's got that ability to step up and to be that guy that can be a third scorer, as you said. But he's just, he's such a smart player too, and I think he likes to set up for others, and he likes to be a deferential sometimes. But you're going to need him to step up. I agree.
And Christian Lander, I think, is one of those guys that's trying to find his way. Like you said, he's the speed, specifically on the defensive side, is probably where he's still chasing. But they need him, man. They need his. He's the tempo. He brings his own tempo in, and you can see the offense speed up when he's in the game. And but he just needs the experience too. He's got to get in there because he can shoot. He's a guy that can shoot. We know Leo can shoot. We even saw Geronimo knock down a 3-pointer. So all four of the guys can shoot.
Yeah, and Lander knocked down a corner three in that Northwestern game. But if you look at the percentages, I think the thing with Christian is he's looking to shoot and force right away, and sometimes he takes bad shots. I mean, his shot selection still isn't quite all the way there yet, but I think that he certainly is. He's a dynamic. He's a fast guy, and you got to think sooner or later if Finney just doesn't show. And if Lander, I mean, this is an opportunity for Lander. If he can just kind of continue to progress there, maybe by February. I mean, Archie's already replaced Trey Galloway in the starting lineup with Finney, but maybe you want that true point guard in there. A big problem I saw also in the end of the Illinois game. Indiana, to their credit, did a much better job cutting down turnovers. But there was during that 13-0 run, you have Armand Franklin trying to bring the floor up on the break, bounces a ball off his body, and loud turnover goes on the other end. Why don't the Hoosiers have that one guy that brings the ball up the court, that designated guy? It's he likes to have Al Durham bring the ball up the court. He just likes to have different guys bring up. It's fine if they can do it, but if they can't do it, let Armand Franklin be the off guard. Don't put the pressure on him to start the break in a Big Ten game.
Well, and I think that there are a lot of questions that goes along with. There's a lot of questions on this team offensively, because there's just, and what you point out to me is a perfect cataclysm of that. There just doesn't seem to be much consistency in what they do and how they do it. And I think that befuddles a lot of people. And what you just talked about, the simplistic thing of bringing the ball up the floor, nothing's ever the same. So how can there ever be consistency on much of anything? I don't know. I mean, maybe there's a rhyme and a reason to that.
And here's another point too. We heard all summer, Trace Jackson Davis working on his shooting range, is going to add that to his arsenal a little bit. Presented the perfect opportunity for himself on Saturday. You have Kofi Coburn parked in the paint. He's a 7-footer. Had Trace stepped out a little bit, tried some shots. You draw Coburn away from the basket a little bit. You open things up. Instead, Trace spent the whole game, most of the game, trying to finish around the rim. He did have that one. He stepped out for an elbow jumper and he missed it. And then I think because he missed that shot and he was struggling to finish inside, he just kind of shied away. So he's 3 of 13 from the floor. Why aren't we seeing that? Why are we seeing Trace? And listen, Trace doesn't have to do it every game, but why are we seeing against a bigger center step out, take some shots, show what you've worked on over the summer, and at least draw a defender like that out of the paint so you can open up some things inside for some of your other guys?
Yesterday, Dustin Apiric, who is usually on Wednesdays with us, he was following Archie's radio show last night, and he says checking in, and he heard Archie say that he thinks Jordan Geronimo and Christian Lander have to play some more. Well, there was one response that just simply said, call in and tell him he's the coach. That tweet got like 169 likes. It's just kind of funny. And that's the thing I don't understand is we hear so many things, or the tempo and all that, and it just never materializes. And you wonder, well, why? Why? We hear that this is how it's going to be, but it's not. And there's never an explanation. Have you just gone a different direction? And there's just no reasoning. It just changes. So there's never any understanding, at least from my standpoint.
Well, I think you have these plans over the summer, and then you go into the fall and into the winter, and then maybe they don't materialize. Maybe if Trace was shooting the ball with some confidence, over the summer, maybe that's reverted a little bit. That could be the only explanation that would be feasible or would make sense. Maybe he is right now struggling to find that shooting range that he worked on over the summer. Now that he's facing defenders with his hand in his face, or maybe you're just a little scared and you revert to what's familiar, and what's familiar with Trace Jackson Davis finishing around the basket, which is fine when you're facing teams like Butler and you have size advantages, but it's not fine when you're going up against Kofi Coburn in the Big Ten. I think that's it's a little bit of a different animal there when you have a size mismatch there when you're 6'9" going against 7 foot. So it'll be interesting to see going forward if Trace can find that confidence when you're facing bigger defenders to step out a little bit and showcase some of the skills that he worked on over the summer.
Yeah, and that's the thing. How do you develop? How do you get better? If you don't when you say that this is what this team needs to do, we need to be more up tempo and this and that, and then you don't do that. When this player needs to do that and they don't do, whether it's stepping out and hitting outside shot, and that doesn't happen, and you keep resorting back. Well, that's what it appears like. Everything keeps resorting back and it's kind of staying the same. So there doesn't seem to be any forward momentum without these changes. So I'm just asking, how can there be forward momentum without change?
Yeah, that's a good question. You do the same thing over and over again, you get the same result. And, you might have to shake things up a little bit. And I think Archie started that process by benching Finney and putting in Trey Galloway. So Galloway now is going to get more run. He's going to get more minutes. Maybe he adds a spark to this team going forward. He certainly trusts Galloway on the defensive end of the floor. For a freshman, he seems to be picking up the pack line pretty well, so he can play him a lot. But I think that's part of the problem with Lander and with Leal and with Geronimo is, you run this intricate defensive system, and it's hard for freshmen to pick up. So you don't trust them on that end of the floor, and you revert to what's familiar. You revert to the guys that that know your defensive system, but it costs you on the offensive end when you have guys like Finney and Al Durham that aren't producing. So it's kind of this catch-22 that they're stuck in right now. And I think it's up for the freshmen, and it's up for Archie to speed up the learning curve on these freshmen to get them to learn his defensive scheme.
Because a lot of the things that have been haunting them, shooting for one, it's not that it's gone away, but Armand Franklin has certainly helped that a ton, unexpectedly too. Their free throw shooting seems to have improved remarkably. And it's grateful. Hoosier fans have to be grateful that it did, but you really have to wonder, why was it ever such an issue? Those things, I just never can comprehend why those little things become such issues so many times. And then when you see multiple things again, same issues creep in. Those are problems when you have the same issues coming back. And I think that's a problem this team fights.
Yeah, no question. And I mean, you even look back at the Northwestern game, you start 1 of 5 from the free throw line. I remember in that game, Trace missed the front end of 1-1. Al Durham, normally reliable, he misses a couple of free throws. You get those like 4 or 7 points in the first half. That puts a little less stress on you climbing the mountain in the second half, and maybe you find a way to win a 1-possession game against Northwestern instead of losing by 7. So it's little things like that are really coming back to bite. The 50-50 balls, in the Illinois game, the rebounding, another thing too. Right now, because they're not playing as conventional as they did last year. Remember, they played, the bigger front line with Justin Smith and Trace Jackson Davis and Brunk. They were a very good rebounding team. Now that they're playing kind of more 3 guards, you've got 6'4", 6'4" at 3 positions, but not rebounding the ball as well. And Archie has brought that up all season. They need more rebounding from their guards, and that's been problematic. And there was an extra possession, a big second chance possession at the end of that Illinois game where Desumnu hit a 3-pointer and turned a 3-point lead into 6, and they had a chance to get a loose ball, but Illinois corralled it near the sidelines. There's little things like that really come back to bite you.
Just a lot of times I watch, it seems like they're so intent on following a script, but they don't seem to know the complete script, if that makes sense. Earlier I was talking about that third option. Tim texted and said Galloway is the third option. He just doesn't know it yet. Well, I think that goes along with what I was saying, that he just needs to look to score more because he's the guy that can do it. And I think once that he does do it, when you see a freshman do that, if these other guys, Durham and Finney, don't take some inspiration from that, I don't know what to tell you, but somebody has to step up. There's just without a doubt. Hey, we got to take a break, too. We got a little bit more before we finish up. You're listening to Indiana Sports Beat, coming to you from the Golf Club at Eagle Point Studios. We're back to finish out right after this.
Hello, everybody. Jim Coyle from Indiana Sports Beat.
A friend of mine called me up, and that's when I pulled back on the Zoom. I was pulling back to see who called, and that's when I.
Oh,
that's
well,
when
I can hear. I was like, I can't hear him, and I looked up like, oh, he's leaning back too far.
Yeah.
I need to get you a little microphone set up.
Mike. More than I feel. Tell Will to play Amanda on the next rejoin.
By Waylon Jennings?
In America.
No, Boston. Yeah,
oh.
I'm surprised to make you realize Amanda.
I was like, there's an Amanda Waylon Jennings. Like, oh, man. I'm like, what the hell? That'd be awful slow.
Yeah.
I got Breakfast in America.
Is that Boston also?
No, it's Supertramp.
That's what I thought that was. Supertramp, man.
Supertramp.
That's 30 years before he was even born. That's like late 70s, early 80s, maybe.
What do you got?
7.
You got REO Speedwagon taking on the run.
Golly, a blast from the past here, boys. Hey, Will, did you get that text?
Yeah, I did, but I got
on the phone, people. What's that?
I didn't see it because he was on the phone there, so I didn't see the text when he was on. But I'll do that next week for sure.
Oh, I got you. That's why I understand why you didn't see it. Yeah, anybody that's on the phone, if we can use their whatever their face thing is, that would be cool.
Yeah.
What do you got coming out next?
What do I got coming out next? I'm doing a story on Lane Kiffin and Tom Allen this week, which will be good. Contrasting the two coaches.
That had to be my idea.
No.
The college and pro football seasons bring friends together, and Leroy's Tavern is a place to watch all the games every week with the NFL Sunday Ticket while enjoying $1 Busch Light drafts every Sunday, Monday, and Thursday. Leroy's Tavern also features a $6 daily lunch special from 10:30 a.m. to 1 p.m. Monday through Friday, featuring a sandwich, fries, or onion rings, or a 7-inch pizza and a non-alcoholic drink for just $6. Be part of the karaoke fun every Friday and Saturday night. Leroy's Tavern, a Westside tradition for 50 years at 2659 Mount Vernon Avenue.
This segment is brought to you by Bubba's 33 in Clarksville. Pizza, burgers, beer.
Going to come true, but there's not a lot I can do.
Welcome back, Indiana Sports Beat, coming to you from a little super tramp for you there with Kevin Brockway. Golf Club at Eagle Point Studios here on this Tuesday. It's been a fun one.
Yeah.
Huh?
So good, Super Tramp. What
Will's rocking out.
9 years old, skateboarding down on the park or whatever brings back a lot of memories.
We're in Bayonne, some New York thing up in the Bronx, or where? Did you tour down to Brooklyn with the boys down on the corner, play some stickball?
Queens, Elmhurst, Queens.
I know you're from Queens. I didn't know if you made it down to Brooklyn, play some stickball. Those got in the street.
We all bounced around, man. Those were the city days.
Indiana takes on Ole Miss Saturday in the Outback Bowl in Raymond James Stadium.
Yep.
Ole Miss, Lane Kiffin. I've said this so many times, talking about the contrast between these two coaches. It's amazing. You got a piece coming out soon, Kevin, about that?
Yeah, and it's both sons of coaches, which is pretty interesting. Lane's dad was Monty, and Tom Allen, the son of a high school football coach. But I think it's interesting how Lane was this golden boy, anointed son of a NFL coach. Coached the Oakland Raiders in his early 30s, right? Then went to Tennessee, where he's
been nothing but a rebel.
And then went to USC after 1 year at Tennessee, and they burned the couches, right? In Tennessee, they were so upset that he would leave, and then he gets fired on the tarmac at LAX by Pat Hayden.
On the tarmac.
Yeah, he's resurrected his career, and I think working for Nick Saban probably was the best thing for him.
How hard do you think that had to be for him, though? Because when you see, we only see certain pictures, and they show the certain things that really make it look worse than it was. But it looked like that had to be a rough couple of years for Lane Kiffin.
Yeah, probably a boot camp existence, right? You learn a lot about, and even Jason Jones even mentioned in the press conference last week, learning about kind of like the organization of practices, the routines. And when I asked Lane about it on Monday, he talked about not only working for Nick Saban, but also working for Pete Carroll, and how you had two guys that went about it in completely different ways, but still found ways to have success. Pete Carroll being a Super Bowl winning coach with the Seattle Seahawks, and then national championship coach at USC. And you learn from those two influences. And you talk about Yeboah being out, you talk about Elijah Moore being out. Well, they were out in the LSU game, and they still scored 48 points. So I think that tells you a lot about Lane as a play caller and working with what he has. So I know some people are suspecting that this might be a cakewalk. I wouldn't be too convinced. I think it'll be a shootout a little bit, and I think that's why I think establishing the run is going to be important, if for nothing else, to keep the ball out of Ole Miss's offense's hands. You know what I mean? And to play the tempo game a little bit, and to keep your defense fresh and rested.
Yeah, I mean, they're a wounded animal backed into a corner. So you already know that that's the kind of coach he is anyway. Whenever you play him, he's going to throw everything at you. It's kind of like Jeff Brom. It kind of reminds me of Jeff Brom. They're really offensive minded, but able to get outside of the box. And now they're kind of, they're overmatched. So you have to do you have to do different things to beat this team, because this is a legit defense. They work on taking away what Ole Miss does best, throwing the ball. So it's going to be but Indiana this is a team that has a chip on its shoulder. The secondary's got a chip on its shoulder. Tywan Mullen and Reese and those guys, they want to finish this out. So I think they're looking forward to this challenge.
And, the other amazing, too, is in that last game against LSU that Ole Miss had Corral, even though they scored, 40-something points in that game, I think 48. Corral threw 5 interceptions in that game, and they still scored 48 points. But, you're talking about the potential for Indiana to finish the season with over 20 interceptions if Corral has another.
In a shortened season, no less.
I mean, that would be pretty remarkable. I mean, 20 interceptions in 8 games. I mean, that would be unheard of. But I think that opportunity is really there based on the matchup and the fact that, Corral is going to be trying to force things probably with some receivers that he's not familiar with because of the fact that, players have opted out on the Ole Miss side.
So last I saw, and I haven't looked lately, when it first came out, I think Indiana was like a 6.5 point favorite. I thought that was a little short. I don't know where the line is now. I haven't looked lately, but what do you think is going to happen in this game?
I think Ole Miss will hang with them for a half, but I think Indiana's going to pull in the second half and win by 15 or 20, win by a couple of scores. I really do. I think this is the year that they get off that schneid, they get that first bowl win in 1991, and they cap the historic season. I think that there's, like you said, too much to lose perception-wise, and I think they know that. So they're going to come into this game, really hungry and really motivated to go out there and to put on a good showing. And might be a little rust in the beginning because of the fact that they haven't played since December 5th. I asked Tom Allen that question. And Indiana's had some COVID issues too, maybe, that they're still not 100% over yet. But I think as the game gets going, this is a team that particularly offensively, they tend to get better as the game goes on.
Then there's Jack Tuttle. We've seen him once at Wisconsin, and he was solid, and that's all he has to be. But in this type of game that could turn into a track meet with Ole Miss, being that they have a track meet type offense, they like to run, they like tempo in their game. That's going to be interesting to see how Jack Tuttle responds if that is the case. If this turns into an up and down kind of a deal.
Let's not forget too, and we continue to pile on. I continue to pile on Miles Marshall there, but you look back there he should have had 3 touchdown passes in that game and over 200 yards passing, because if Marshall makes that catch for a touchdown, that's a 60-70 yard touchdown pass. So I think Jack Tuttle, to me, I think he's going to be okay. I think he's going to be fine, and he's going to be a guy that's going to be productive within the offense. But you also have that opportunity to really establish a run too. I think in this game, I think this could be a game where Steve Scott. You could get Tim Baldwin. We're very similar in the Maryland game where you could have 2 guys near 100 yards rushing in this game because you're not facing that physical defensive front that you've seen in a lot of Big Ten opponents this season. So I think you have a really good opportunity for balance in this game too.
And actually, Indiana's got 3 good running backs that we've seen this year at different times. And that could be an opportunity. You could have a 3-pronged running attack in this game. Tim Baldwin Jr. is also someone that popped in when during injury. I think Samson James got hurt, and he's been in. So they're pretty solid all the way around, and I think that could cause some serious problems for Ole Miss.
No question. And I think that's going to be offensively, but it starts up front too, and you're hoping that you'll have all those guys at full strength. Maybe this could be the first time in a while where you'll have Bedford and Caleb Jones playing at the same time at the tackles, which I think will help immeasurably in terms of pass protection, and maybe running on the outside. Harry Kreider, who's a senior, this could be his last game, or he could decide to come back, and your inside guys as well with Dylan Powell and Kadick and Mackenzie Nwora. So I think the offensive line will be in good shape. That's a unit I think that's shown some growth throughout the course of the season, and they're going to continue to need them to, blow some of these Ole Miss guys off the defensive line and create some holes in the running game or protect Tuttle and let Jack do his thing.
Yep, Tebow text in Ole Miss top running back and wide receiver questionable. Only have 6 possible to play. Let's hope that we get to the game. And next time you're on, we're talking about a bowl win. What's up next for you?
Head down to Tampa. Going to work on that story on the Kiffin, Obviously, Tom Allen contrast story. Also, some on Stevie Scott today, too. He didn't miss the bowl game last year. This is going to be an opportunity, as I've mentioned before, for him to have a big day as well. And also, a little bit about Indiana having something to prove this weekend after what happened on Selection Sunday, shall we say, on CFP Sunday. I think they're going to come into this game with a lot of motivation.
Well, we'll certainly find out. Looking forward to it. You got basketball coming up yet on Wednesday as Indiana will be taking on Penn State. Of course, after the game with Todd Leary, live from Yogi's, we'll be doing that. Then you've got the bowl game on Saturday. And IU's next basketball game was that Sunday. Haven't even looked ahead that far, man. Just a lot going on. You got bowl games today. The Cheez-It Bowl today. Kevin's beloved Miami Hurricanes. Who are they taking on?
Taking on Oklahoma State. Mike Gundy. I'm a man. I'm 40.
Man, that ought to be a fun game to watch. Looking forward to that.
That's gonna be interesting. And De'Ara King from the Hurricanes announcing he's gonna come back for another year. And he had a really great season. Miami just didn't have a good enough team around him this year to get to a major bowl. But they do have an 8-2 record going to the game, and I'll be curious to see about that. And maybe Will Maui, Bill Mallory's grandson at tight end, maybe he'll get another touchdown catch. He's had a fine season as well.
Very, very cool. Purdue is at Rutgers tonight. That's at 7. And then the nightcap, Northwestern, number 19 Northwestern at number 10 Iowa. That's at 9 o'clock. So we'll have those games to talk about tomorrow. What is tomorrow? Wednesday. That means Dustin DePirick and Kyle Neddenrip. Jordan's been joining us. We'll see how he's doing. His family just got over there. So thanks a lot to everybody. We appreciate you. Appreciate Kevin. Happy holidays, man. We'll probably see you in Tampa. Until then, make sure you wear your mask. Do something nice for somebody. And until tomorrow, I'm Jim Coyle. I will see you on the radio.
I'm a man. I'm 40. All right, bro. I will see you in Tampa.
Thank you, my friend. Yeah, I'll buy you dinner down there.
You don't have to.
No, I will.
There's a good sports bar called Brickstone down there, which is right by.
Hey, I've already heard 2 people tell me City Cigar Bar or something like that.
That's probably down in Ybor.
Well, I've had like 2 people tell me, but
yeah, Ybor's fun too. Yeah.
Oh, do I have to kill this recording? Will?
I'm trying to right now and give me a minute.
Oh, I can.